The rail moved before anyone heard it break. On the evening of the 6th of January 1847, beneath the chandeliers of Davenant House in Mayfair, 300 guests admired the newly restored West Gallery as though polished walnut and fresh gilding could guarantee strength. Susanna Norwood knew better. She stood near the foot of the great staircase in a white half-mask and a gown chosen because no one would remember it. Her gloved hands rested quietly at her waist. Above her, silk skirts swept past carved arches, while laughter rose and dissolved beneath the music. Each time several guests crossed the western turn, the balustrade trembled. The movement was slight enough to escape notice. Susanna watched the shadow beneath the third walnut rosette change by the width of a thread. Her father had once taught her that timber often warned before it failed. Most people heard only the final crack because they had ignored everything that came before it. "You're staring again," Sir Jasper Norwood said beside her. His smile was meant for the room. His voice was meant for her alone. "I'm observing the gallery. You're attending a ball. The western rail is moving." Jasper did not look up. He had supervised the refurbishment and accepted every compliment offered that evening. "It's newly finished." "That doesn't mean it's sound. You will say nothing." Susanna kept her gaze on the rosette. A gentleman leaned against the balustrade while speaking to a woman in silver satin. The wood bowed inward, then returned. "Someone should examine the joint." Jasper moved closer. "You have no standing to question work commissioned by Lady Davenant." "I have eyes." "You have an unfortunate habit of mistaking instruction for authority." His tone remained soft, but the old warning was clear. Susanna had spent years drawing repairs that later appeared beneath Jasper's name. She had corrected drainage, roofs, lintels, and foundations, while Lady Norwood called such work an eccentric occupation. Jasper found it less eccentric whenever a tenant roof needed saving, or an estate account required improvement. At Briarcombe, her skill was useful. In London, it was an embarrassment. "If the rail fails," Susanna said, "authority will not matter. And if you make a spectacle of yourself, the family will bear it." A man behind them said, "Families are often asked to bear the consequences of truth. They rarely enjoy the exercise." Jasper released a breath and turned. Hugh Wetherby, 7th Duke of Casterleigh, stood one step above them. He wore black evening clothes, a silver waistcoat, and a narrow domino mask pushed high enough to reveal his eyes. His rank had drawn attention from every ambitious mother in the house. His expression suggested that he had noticed and survived the experience. "Your Grace," Jasper said, bowing. "My cousin was only admiring the renovations." Hugh looked from Jasper to Susanna, then toward the gallery. Was she? Susanna had seen him across crowded rooms before. Everyone had. He carried the ease of a man who never needed to demand space because it opened around him. Yet he was not smiling now. He waited for her answer as though it mattered. "No, Your Grace," she said. "I was questioning them." His brows lifted. "That is considerably more useful." Jasper gave a restrained laugh. Miss Norwood inherited an enthusiasm for practical matters from her father. Practical matters are the ones that become dangerous when fashionable people dismiss them. Hugh glanced upward. "What do you see?" Susanna hesitated. Jasper's disapproval pressed against her like a hand between her shoulder blades. Hugh did not repeat the question. He simply waited. "The rail moves whenever weight crosses the western turn," she said. "The movement travels toward the central joint. The third rosette west of the arch is no longer sitting evenly in its bed." Hugh narrowed his eyes. "You can see that from here." The lower shadow changes each time the rail bends. And what does that mean? It means the rail speaks before it breaks. The humor left his face. He looked toward the chandeliers. Their crystals trembled faintly, though the dancers below had paused between sets. "I thought that was the music," he said. "It may be carrying through the floor." Hugh took one step toward the staircase. At that moment, the Countess of Davenant's young niece ran laughing onto the gallery, with two other girls. Silver ribbons streamed from her sleeves. She stopped near the western turn and leaned back against the balustrade, while her companions teased her about a dance. Susanna saw the walnut rosette shift outward. This time, it did not settle back. "Move away from the rail," she called. The orchestra began another piece. Her warning vanished beneath the first sweep of strings. Hugh turned sharply toward the gallery. Susanna was already climbing the stairs. Jasper caught at her sleeve. "Susanna, don't." She pulled free. The girl above shifted her weight. The rail bowed. Susanna reached the gallery as a low crack traveled through the carved wood. She caught the child around the waist and pulled her backward. The girl stumbled safely against the wall. Susanna's left shoulder struck the edge of a stone pillar. Pain flashed down her arm, then the balustrade tore away. A section of walnut rail dropped into the ballroom and struck an empty table below. Glass shattered. Music stopped. The room seemed to inhale and forget how to exhale. Hugh's voice cut through the silence. "Clear the gallery." He did not shout, yet the command carried to every corner. "No one is to approach the western side. Davenant, close the doors. Steward, send for the house carpenter. Every piece is to remain exactly where it fell." Guests moved at last. Mothers drew daughters away. Gentlemen, who had admired the workmanship minutes earlier, stared at the broken opening with pale faces. The Countess rushed to her niece, who clung to Susanna with both hands. "You saved her," the Countess said. Susanna barely heard. Her shoulder throbbed. Jasper had reached the gallery. His expression was composed except for the fury in his eyes. He took Susanna's arm. "You're leaving." Hugh came up the stairs. "She may be injured." "She's only distressed," Jasper replied. "I will see her home." "I'm not distressed," Susanna said. "The fastening must be examined before anyone repairs the wood." Jasper tightened his grip. "Not here. The material may have been changed." That stopped him for less than a second, but Susanna felt it. Fear, not surprise. Hugh saw something as well, though he could not yet know what it meant. The Countess's niece began to cry. The Countess turned to Hugh for help, and Jasper used the distraction to pull Susanna toward the side corridor where Lady Norwood and Selina waited. "You will not answer questions," he murmured. "You will not speak to the Duke. You will not return to this room. Jasper, if the joint was altered, the rest of the gallery may be unsafe. You forget your position." "No," she said. "You depend upon it." His face hardened. He hurried her through the doorway. Susanna glanced back once. Hugh stood beside the broken opening, directing servants away from the debris. He looked toward the corridor, but guests had already crossed between them. Susanna did not notice that her left glove was gone. It had caught on the splintered edge of the third walnut rosette when she pulled the girl away. The white kid leather slipped soundlessly from her hand and remained folded against the dark wood. Along the inner forefinger ran a faint line of red carpenter's chalk. Fine walnut dust clung to the cuff. By the time Hugh returned to the point where the rail had failed, the woman in the white mask had vanished. No servant could name her. No guest card near the stairs bore her identity. He saw only the broken wood, the empty corridor, and one pale glove resting against the splintered rosette. Hugh lifted it carefully. A fine shard of walnut lay caught inside the cuff. The red chalk was not the mark of a fashionable lady. It belonged to someone who measured, marked, and understood how things were built. He closed his hand around the glove without allowing the gathering guests to see it. Then he turned to the Davenant steward. "Find the woman who knew the gallery would fall. By 10 o'clock the next morning, Davenant House had lost every trace of celebration. The chandeliers were dark. The musicians' platform stood empty. A rope barred the staircase, and the fallen section of walnut rail remained where it had struck the ballroom floor, surrounded by splintered glass and chalk marks made by the house carpenter. Hugh returned with Mr. Elias Bell, an independent surveyor whose caution had earned him fewer fashionable patrons than his honesty deserved. The Countess of Davenant met them beneath the gallery. She had not slept. "My niece has a bruised elbow and a fright," she said. "The physician assures me there is no greater injury." Hugh looked up at the gap in the balustrade. Then she was fortunate. Miss Norwood made her so. The Countess paused. "At least, I believe that was the name Sir Jasper used." Hugh carried the white glove in a small cedar case lined with plain cloth. He had closed it away before leaving the house the previous night. Not because the glove was valuable, but because society had already begun turning the unknown woman into a romantic curiosity. He would not let strangers handle the only thing she had left behind. Mr. Bell knelt beside the broken rail. The house carpenter had separated no piece from another without recording its position. After several minutes, Bell called Hugh nearer. "Your Grace." He held a short fragment of dark metal on a square of clean cloth. The piece was no longer than a man's finger. One end had fractured unevenly. Near its center was a shallow crescent-shaped stamp. "This held the western joint?" Hugh asked. "It was meant to." Bell turned the fragment beneath the window light. "Cast iron. Undersized. The approved specification calls for wrought iron cramps of a heavier gauge." The Countess stared at the metal. Would the difference have been visible? Not after the walnut covering was fixed over it. Bell pointed toward the broken rosette. The decorative work concealed the fastening completely. Hugh remembered Susanna saying the material might have been changed. Jasper's brief stillness when she spoke now carried more weight. Could someone standing below have known what was hidden? Not the material itself. But movement in the joint could be seen by someone trained to watch structures. A surveyor, a draftsman, a builder. Anyone accustomed to reading stress before failure. "A gentlewoman?" Bell looked at him. "Knowledge does not alter according to the hand that carries it." Hugh glanced at the cedar case. "No, it does not." The carpenter recovered the splintered walnut rosette from the fallen rail. A faint streak of red chalk marked the inner curve, the same color found along the glove's forefinger. Bell inspected both pieces, but did not remove them from Davenant House. The steward brought a locked evidence box from the estate office. In the presence of the Countess, Hugh, Bell, and the carpenter, he placed the failed western pin and broken rosette inside. The steward locked the box and retained the key. Every later opening would be recorded. Nothing was to be repaired, cleaned, or carried away. In the morning room, Hugh examined the guest list. Lady Norwood and Miss Susanna Norwood appeared in the secretary's neat hand. Beneath their names, added later in smaller script, were the words, "a female relation." No Christian name, no address, no separate invitation. "Who requested the addition?" Hugh asked. "Lady Norwood," the secretary replied. She said the lady was staying temporarily in her household and would not remain for supper. Did the lady give her own name at the entrance? No, Your Grace. She wore a white mask and entered behind Sir Jasper. The departure book gave no better answer. The Norwood carriage had left earlier than planned during the confusion after the accident. The footman had recorded the vehicle, but not every passenger. Before noon, Lady Norwood, Jasper, and Selina were shown into the drawing room. Lady Norwood wore violet silk and an expression of practiced concern. Selina looked offended by the necessity of appearing. Jasper seemed composed enough to suggest he had rehearsed. Hugh remained standing beside the mantel. The cedar case rested closed on a nearby table. "I am trying to identify the woman who warned me about the gallery," he said. Lady Norwood sighed. A most unfortunate person. She had been serving temporarily as a companion to an acquaintance. I permitted her to attend because she had never seen a London ball. Hugh watched Jasper. "You called her your cousin." "A courtesy," Jasper replied. "She is distantly connected." "Her name?" "It would be unkind to expose her to gossip." "The gossip has already begun." Selina leaned forward. Perhaps that was what she intended. A woman does not leave a glove where a duke will find it unless she wishes to be pursued. Hugh's gaze settled on her. She lost the glove while preventing a child from falling through a gallery rail. Selina's color shifted. "I only meant that some women understand opportunity, and some mistake courage for calculation." Lady Norwood intervened. "Your Grace." The poor creature became overwrought. She confessed this morning that she had exaggerated her knowledge. "Confessed to whom?" "To me." "And where is she now?" "She has left London." "For where?" Lady Norwood hesitated. It lasted less than a second. Hugh saw it. Jasper answered. "Scotland, I believe." "You believe?" "I do not manage the movements of every distant relation." Hugh placed one hand on the cedar case. "Do any of you recognize this?" He opened it and lifted the glove by its cuff. Selina looked first. White gloves are hardly rare. Lady Norwood did not touch it. Jasper's eyes moved to the red chalk, then away. The reaction was small. It was also the first honest thing Hugh had seen from him. "No," Jasper said. Hugh closed the case. "Miss Norwood, were you in the West Gallery last night?" Selina blinked. "Certainly not." "Then there is another Miss Norwood." "Susanna was unwell," Jasper said too quickly. The name landed cleanly. Susanna. Hugh repeated it silently. "She remained at home all evening," Jasper continued. "Your Grace must have misheard me in the confusion." "I did not." Jasper's jaw tightened. Hugh let the silence stand before asking, "You supervised the Davenant refurbishment. I introduced the builder and reviewed the accounts." "Mr. Bell has found unsuitable metal concealed beneath the walnut work." "Then the builder must answer for it." "He will." Hugh's voice remained calm. "So will the man who approved the expenditure." Jasper's fingers closed once around the head of his cane. Hugh had no proof of fraud yet, but he had found fear. "I wish to call upon Miss Susanna Norwood," he said. Lady Norwood smiled with composed regret. "She cannot receive you, because she is unwell." "Because she is no longer in London." That evening, at the Norwood residence, Susanna sat beside a small fire, with her left arm held close to her body. The bruise beneath her gown had darkened. Raising the shoulder sent a dull pain toward her neck. But Lady Norwood had refused to summon a physician. "You weren't thrown from a horse," she had said. "You do not require a household crisis." Susanna's drawing folio lay open on the table. Several sheets showed repairs for Briarcombe cottages, stable drainage, and an earlier section of the Davenant Gallery. Jasper entered without knocking. You will leave for Briarcombe before sunrise." Susanna looked up. "Why?" "Because the Duke is asking questions. He should. You will not encourage him. I have not seen him since last night. You spoke enough before the rail fell." Jasper crossed the room and closed the folio. Susanna rose despite the pull in her shoulder. "Those papers are mine. They were made beneath my roof with materials paid for by this household. My father bought most of those instruments before you inherited the title. Your father is dead." The sentence was quiet. That made it crueler. Susanna held his gaze. "The work is still mine. Technical exercises are unsuitable for a gentlewoman, particularly one who mistakes usefulness for independence." He lifted the folio from the table. "You have used my drawings before. You assisted with household matters. The dairy drainage, the eastern cottages, the stable roof. You signed everyone. Because patrons require a responsible name." "You mean a man's name?" Jasper's expression cooled. "I mean a name society recognizes." A footman knocked and entered with a silver tray. On it lay Hugh Wetherby's calling card and a sealed note addressed to Miss Susanna Norwood. Susanna saw only the Duke's crest before Jasper turned. "Leave them," he said. The footman obeyed and withdrew. Susanna stepped forward. "That is addressed to me." Jasper picked up the card and note. "It concerns the family. It bears my name. A name you will not use to make us ridiculous." He slipped both into the inner pocket of his coat. Susanna understood then that Hugh had not forgotten her. The knowledge lasted only an instant before Jasper took even that from her by refusing the letter. "What did he write?" she asked. "You will never know." He tucked the folio beneath his arm. "At Briarcombe, you will make no public statement. You will send no letter to Davenant House. You will receive no caller without my mother's approval. You cannot erase what happened. Society forgets women every day." He turned toward the door. Susanna looked at her bare left hand. Somewhere in Davenant House, perhaps beneath broken glass or in a servant's dustpan, lay the glove that proved she had been there. She did not know that Hugh had preserved it. She did not know that the failed pin and rosette were locked away. She knew only that Jasper feared questions and that he was carrying her work, her letter, and her name out of the room. Before sunrise on the 8th January, the Norwood carriage left London for Hampshire. Susanna sat inside with her injured shoulder wrapped beneath her cloak, while Jasper's intercepted letter remained sealed in the pocket of the man who intended to make certain she disappeared before the Duke could find her. By the middle of February, Briarcombe Lodge had taught Susanna how thoroughly a woman could be removed. Without anyone declaring her gone, the house stood among bare Hampshire fields, respectable from the road and airless within. Lady Norwood occupied the southern rooms. Selina complained of mud, cold, and the absence of suitable company. Jasper travelled between London and the estate whenever contracts required his presence. Susanna was given a small bedchamber overlooking the service yard, and told she ought to be grateful for quiet. Her left shoulder remained stiff for several weeks. Raising her arm sent a dull ache toward her neck, but no physician was summoned, and she did not ask again. By early spring, the bruise had faded. The memory of the gallery did not, nor did the memory of Hugh Wetherby turning toward her as though her warning mattered. She knew only that a sealed letter bearing his crest had once existed. Jasper had taken it, whether it contained thanks, questions, or nothing more than formal courtesy, she could not know. That uncertainty became one more thing he controlled. In March, Jasper returned her drawing instruments, but not the confiscated folio. He placed several estate repair requests on the breakfast room table as though offering a kindness. You may occupy yourself with these. Susanna examined the top sheet. A tenant cottage required a new lintel and drainage correction. Under whose name will the drawings be submitted? Mine, naturally. Then it isn't occupation. It's unpaid work. Lady Norwood lowered her teacup. A woman in your position should be thankful to remain useful. Susanna looked at Jasper. Useful enough to design. Not respectable enough to sign. Don't become theatrical. I am asking a practical question. No patron will employ a woman for structural work. Then perhaps no patron should receive it. Jasper leaned back. You misunderstand your leverage. You possess skill. I possess a name. Susanna understood him better than he realized. She completed the cottage repair because a tenant family should not sleep beneath a failing beam. She corrected the dairy floor because damp did not become harmless when the person who noticed it lacked status. She revised a stable roof because horses and boys could not afford her pride. Yet she also began a second record. At night, when the household had gone quiet, she redrew every preliminary section on linen-backed paper purchased through the village stationer. She dated each sheet. In the lower corner, she used the double-line notation her father had taught her whenever a measurement changed after further observation. The marks recorded not only what she concluded, but how she had reached it. She hid the growing portfolio beneath a loose board inside the window seat. One afternoon in June, Selina entered without knocking while Susanna was replacing the board. What are you hiding? Susanna did not turn too quickly. A harmless set of household sketches lay on the cushion above the concealed compartment. A drainage study. Selina picked up the top sheet. You spend your life making ugly things less inconvenient. That is often what repair means. Selina glanced toward the window seat. For one dangerous second, Susanna thought she had noticed the loosened edge of the wood. Then Selina laughed at the ink on Susanna's fingers. No gentleman will admire hands like those. Then I shall try to survive the disappointment. Selina dropped the sketch and left. Susanna waited until the corridor fell silent before moving the portfolio deeper into the cavity. That evening, she added one more dated note to the top sheet. Proof had value only while it remained beyond Jasper's reach. In London, Hugh refused to let his search become a fashionable amusement. He questioned glove-makers, joiners, draftsmen, builders, and surveyors who might recognize the faint red chalk preserved on the white glove. The glove itself remained inside its cedar case at Wetherby House. He showed no curious lady the leather and allowed no newspaper to romanticize it. 2 false claimants reached him before summer. The first, a young widow, said she had noticed the gallery candles flicker and had known danger was near. Hugh asked what movement in the rail would have meant. She could not answer. The second, a merchant's daughter, coached by an ambitious mother, repeated almost exactly that a rail spoke before it broke. Hugh asked which part of the structure had spoken. She guessed the staircase. He dismissed both women without humiliation. London had taught them that a duke's attention might be a form of rescue. He would not punish them for learning the lesson too well. Yet every false answer sharpened the memory of the true one. In April, while reviewing copies of Davenant contractor correspondence, Hugh found something more useful than another rumor. At the edge of an early repair memorandum appeared a faint reference to Miss N, revised section. In the fair copy later submitted under Jasper's supervision, the words had been struck through so heavily that only the first letters remained. Hugh held the page near the window. "This was not erased after the accident," he said. His secretary looked over his shoulder. "The date is November 1846. Then Jasper was removing her before I ever knew she existed. The discovery changed the search. Susanna had not merely vanished from a ballroom. Someone had been training the record to forget her." By August, Hugh and his solicitor traced the crescent-stamped cast pins to a Birmingham supplier. The original ledger named only an intermediary builder. The quantity ordered was larger than expected, though not yet enough to prove where every pin had gone. Hugh kept that uncertainty private. Suspicion was not evidence. Instead, he sponsored an anonymous competition for a safer gallery brace suitable for country houses. The notice traveled through professional circles rather than society papers. At Briarcombe, Jasper placed it on Susanna's work table. "You will prepare an entry." She read the conditions. The winning design would be presented at Davenant House the following January. Under whose name? The Norwood name. Which Norwood? Don't begin. Susanna looked at the printed notice. Before the gallery failure, she had drawn a corrective plan for Davenant's western turn. It specified stronger wrought iron cramps and a doubled support where the vibration concentrated. Jasper had ignored or taken the work. The competition offered a chance to refine what he had buried. "The earlier design was mine," she said. "This one will be as well. You were permitted to assist. You were permitted to sign." Jasper's jaw tightened. "You will complete the entry." Susanna folded the notice. "I will complete it, because the next carpenter should be able to see what is hidden." She developed the brace through October and November. The original corrective plan had strengthened the dangerous turn. The new competition version went further. She added removable inspection panels beneath the walnut fascia, so no future patron could conceal inferior fastenings behind decorative carving without leaving a means of discovery. She refined the path by which vibration dispersed before reaching the joint. Jasper visited often, asking questions that revealed how little he understood. Susanna answered only what was necessary to keep the design safe. Each night, she placed the dated developmental studies in the linen-backed portfolio beneath the window seat. When the final presentation sheet was ready, Jasper took it while the ink was still drying. "This will restore confidence in the Norwood name," he said. Susanna looked at the lines beneath his hand. "It may do more than that." "What do you mean?" "A design that can be inspected is harder to lie about." He stared at her, but she had already lowered her gaze to the discarded calculations. In December, the entry was declared the winner. Davenant House invited Sir Jasper Norwood to present the brace on the 6th January 1848. Lady Norwood ordered Susanna to accompany them, because Jasper might require technical answers. She was to stand behind a decorative screen, wear a plain gown, and speak only when prompted. She was not to approach the Duke. She was not to mention the previous ball. Susanna accepted every instruction without argument. That troubled Jasper more than defiance would have done. On the evening before their departure, she lifted the loose board beneath the window seat and removed the linen-backed portfolio. The dated competition studies lay inside, flat and orderly. Beneath them were copies of estate repairs Jasper had signed. She locked the folio, wrapped it in plain brown cloth, and placed it at the bottom of her travelling case. Hugh Wetherby had spent nearly a year searching for a woman whose name had been crossed from a margin. Jasper had spent the same year using her work, while making certain no one saw the hand that created it. On the 6th of January 1848, exactly 1 year after the rail had fallen, Susanna returned to Davenant House, carrying proof that she had not disappeared. The first thing Hugh heard was Jasper Norwood answering a question he did not understand. Davenant House had changed since the previous January. The West Gallery remained closed behind panelled screens, its damaged balustrade untouched, while the Countess's surveyor completed his record. The ballroom below had been restored. But every guest who glanced toward the sealed opening remembered the crash. The anniversary gathering was smaller than the ball had been, though more dangerous in another way. Architects, builders, estate owners, and aristocratic patrons had come to inspect the winning design for a safer gallery brace. Fashionable observers had come to decide who deserved credit for it. At the center of the room, a large presentation sheet stood mounted beneath glass. Sir Jasper Norwood's name appeared at the bottom. Behind a carved, decorative screen waited the woman who had drawn every important line. Susanna stood in a narrow space between the screen and a table of working sketches. Lady Norwood had chosen her plain dark blue gown because it would not draw attention. The locked linen-backed portfolio remained wrapped in brown cloth inside Susanna's traveling case in the guest room above. She had brought the dated competition studies to London, but she would not risk carrying them into a crowded ballroom while Jasper watched her every movement. Through the openings in the screen, she could see fragments of the gathering. The silver hair of the Countess. Jasper's hand moving over the mounted sheet, Hugh Wetherby's black coat near the front. A year had altered his voice in her memory. Sometimes she had recalled it as warmer than it was, sometimes colder. Hearing it now restored every restrained note. The support is doubled only at the western turn, Hugh said. Why? Jasper smiled toward the design. The western turn carries greater decorative weight, Your Grace. The additional brace preserves the visual balance of the arch. Behind the screen, Susanna closed her eyes. The answer was not merely incomplete. It was absurd. Hugh did not respond at once. Silence stretched through the room until even those who knew nothing of construction understood that Jasper had failed. Visual balance, Hugh said at last, is not usually improved by concealing a support beneath walnut. A few guests smiled. Jasper's face did not change. Naturally, practical considerations also influenced the arrangement. Which considerations? Jasper glanced toward the screen. The movement was slight, but Susanna saw it. He wanted her to whisper the answer so he could repeat it. Lady Norwood leaned closer. Tell him. Susanna looked at her aunt. Jasper said, I wasn't to speak unless prompted. You have been prompted, not by the gentleman asking the question. Lady Norwood's mouth tightened. Beyond the screen, Hugh said, Sir Jasper. Jasper's pause lengthened. Susanna could have allowed him to fail. For one brief moment, the temptation felt almost just. Then she remembered the Countess's niece leaning against the rail. Technical falsehood became dangerous when powerful people accepted it as authority. Susanna spoke clearly enough to reach the room. The doubled support interrupts the path of vibration before it reaches the western joint. Conversation stopped. The turn carries movement from the stair approach and the gallery walk. If the brace is placed farther east, the force reaches the carved connection before it disperses. Hugh went completely still. Susanna could not see his expression, but the silence around him changed. Jasper recovered first. As I was about to explain. No, Hugh said. You were explaining decoration. Several heads turned toward the screen. The Countess looked directly at it. Hugh walked around the presentation table. Susanna saw his shoes through the carved openings, then the line of his coat as he came nearer. Who spoke? Lady Norwood stepped forward, a female relation who assisted with copying the final sheet. She did more than copy it. Hugh stopped before the screen. He looked through one narrow opening, and for a single suspended moment, neither he nor Susanna moved. There was no mask between them now. He saw a woman of 30 in a plain gown, her brown hair arranged without fashionable ornament, her face composed by long practice. She saw that he looked almost exactly as she remembered, except for the fatigue around his eyes and the absence of humor. Then he said quietly, "A rail speaks before it breaks." Susanna's breath caught. Jasper moved between them. "Your Grace, this is my cousin, Miss Susanna Norwood. She has a habit of repeating phrases she hears from others." Hugh did not look away from her. "Did you hear that phrase from someone else, Miss Norwood?" "No. Did you speak it to me here last January?" "Yes." The room beyond the screen had gone silent. Hugh did not reach into his coat. Instead, he signaled to his valet near the doorway. The man came forward carrying a small cedar case and placed it in Hugh's hands. Hugh opened the lid. The white glove lay inside, faint red chalk still visible along the inner forefinger. Fine walnut dust remained in the folds near the cuff. The leather had not been cleaned or worn. It had been preserved. "Is this yours?" Hugh asked. Susanna looked at the slight compression near the cuff. It caught on the third walnut, rosette west of the arch. His gaze sharpened. "The third?" "Yes." The lower leaf had lifted. There was a splinter beneath it. The Countess came nearer. "That is where the glove was found." Jasper gave a dismissive laugh. She could have learned that from a servant. "No servant was told which rosette held it," Hugh replied. "The steward recorded only that the glove was recovered beside the broken rail." Susanna looked at the glove again. The lost year seemed to narrow into the cedar box. "You kept it." "It was all I had." Something restrained beneath the answer reached her more deeply than ornamented praise would have done. Hugh closed the case. He did not announce her identity to the room or turn the discovery into a triumph. "Why did you leave before I could speak with you?" he asked. Jasper answered first. There was nothing to speak about. She made a fortunate guess and became overwhelmed by the result. Susanna looked at her cousin. "You put me in a carriage before sunrise." A murmur passed through the nearest guests. Jasper's face hardened. "Because you were unwell." Because his Grace had begun asking questions. Hugh's attention shifted to Jasper. "You told me she had gone to Scotland." "I was misinformed." "By yourself?" The Countess lowered her gaze, hiding the edge of a reaction. Jasper turned toward the mounted design. "This discussion has nothing to do with the competition. It has everything to do with it," Hugh said. "You have not explained the work standing beneath your name." Jasper's voice cooled. "The design is mine." Hugh looked back at Susanna. "Did you draw the winning competition brace?" The question was direct. No command, no assumption. Susanna felt every person in the room waiting to decide whether she was bold, deluded, or dangerous. "The concept is mine," she said. "The refined Western support is mine. The removable inspection panels are mine. The method of dispersing vibration before it reaches the carved joint is mine." Jasper stepped forward. "That is false." Susanna continued without looking at him. "The competition design develops an earlier corrective plan I prepared in 1846 for the Davenant refurbishment. That plan required stronger wrought iron cramps and a doubled support at the western turn. The later competition work added access panels so hidden fastenings could be inspected. Hugh absorbed the distinction. Do records of both designs exist? My dated competition studies are in a locked portfolio upstairs. Jasper's eyes flashed before he controlled them. Susanna saw the reaction and knew he had not expected her to bring proof. The earlier corrective records were left at Briarcombe, she continued, if they have not been removed. Lady Norwood stepped forward. Susanna's father permitted her to copy technical papers. She has mistaken practice for authorship. Hugh looked at Jasper. Can you explain the removable panels? Of course. Then do so. Jasper glanced at the mounted sheet. They permit circulation around the fastening. They permit inspection, Susanna said. They are not vents. Hugh's expression did not change, but the answer settled the matter of understanding. Miss Norwood, he said, what do you want done? The question altered the room more than any declaration could have. Susanna looked toward the Countess, whose house and reputation were bound to the design. Then she looked at the mounted sheet, at Jasper's name beneath the lines she had drawn. A private examination, she said. The Countess should be present because the work concerns her property. Mr. Bell should attend because he examined the failed gallery. Jasper may bring whatever papers he claims support his authorship. I will bring my dated competition studies. And the earlier corrective records, Hugh asked. I will retrieve them lawfully if they still exist. I can order them brought from Briarcombe. No, the refusal startled several guests. Hugh only waited. You cannot take family papers because you are a duke, Susanna said, and I will not exchange Jasper's control for yours. Hugh accepted the rebuke without visible offense. Then I will not. Until the examination, I want no public announcement, no praise, no accusation. His gaze held hers. You have my word, Jasper scoffed. This is absurd. She copied my work and now uses your Grace's attention to make herself important. Hugh turned toward him. Then a private examination should present no danger to you. Jasper had no answer. Hugh offered Susanna the cedar case. She looked at it, but kept her hands at her sides. Keep it for now, she said, until the matter is settled. His fingers closed gently around the case. As you wish. Susanna looked once more at the name beneath the mounted design. You found the woman who wore the glove. Now, you must decide whether you wish to know the woman whose work they wear as their own. The private examination began the following morning in the smaller drawing room at Davenant House, where the Countess had ordered the curtains opened. Despite the pale January light, the winning competition design rested upon an easel near the window. Beside it lay Jasper's presentation notes, Mr. Bell's report on the failed West Gallery, and a clean sheet of foolscap for the Countess's secretary. Susanna entered, carrying the locked linen-backed portfolio she had brought from Briarcombe. Hugh was already present. The cedar case containing the white glove rested closed on a side table beside him. He did not open it. He did not touch the mounted drawing when she approached. Instead, he inclined his head toward the folio in her hands. May I ask what you have brought? My dated competition studies. May they be examined? The question was simple. Susanna noticed that he had not assumed the right to answer it for her. Yes. She unlocked the portfolio and removed several flat sheets. Each carried a date, working measurements, and the double-line notation she used when revising a conclusion after further observation. She placed them on the long table herself. Jasper stood opposite her with Lady Norwood and Selina seated near the fire. Mr. Bell moved closer to the drawings. The Countess remained at the head of the table, unmistakably mistress of the room. Miss Norwood will explain the design first, she said. No one will interrupt until she has finished. Jasper's mouth tightened. My cousin may describe the copying process, if that assists the inquiry. Susanna met his gaze. It will not. She turned to the mounted competition sheet. The brace shown here is a refinement of an earlier corrective plan I prepared in 1846 for the Davenant refurbishment. The earlier plan strengthened the western turn and required wrought iron cramps of a heavier gauge. This later competition design adds removable inspection panels beneath the walnut fascia. Mr. Bell bent over the sheet. Why add the panels? Because strength hidden behind decorative work cannot be verified without dismantling the rail. These panels allow a carpenter to examine the fastenings before movement becomes visible from the ballroom. And the doubled support. It interrupts vibration before the force reaches the carved joint. The western turn receives movement from the stair approach and the gallery walk. The east side does not carry the same pattern. Jasper stepped forward, exactly as I intended. Hugh looked at him. Yesterday, you said the support balanced the appearance of the arch. Jasper's expression did not change. I simplified the explanation for a mixed-doors audience. You replaced one explanation with another after Miss Norwood supplied it. Your Grace, the governing principle was mine, Mr. Bell lifted one of Susanna's dated studies. Then perhaps you can explain the sequence here. Jasper glanced at the page. It shows alternative dimensions. It shows more than that, Susanna said. The first figure records the inherited joint. The second reflects movement observed at the western approach. The double line marks the correction. The final figure produces the brace on the mounted sheet. Mr. Bell compared the study with the competition design. The development is consistent. Jasper's voice cooled. She copied household papers and embellished them. Susanna opened another study. This one is dated 3 weeks before the final presentation sheet. This one is dated 2 weeks before. This one records the inspection panels before they appeared on the clean copy you submitted. Selina shifted near the fire. A woman can put any date on a piece of paper. Yes, Susanna said. That is why method matters more than ink. Hugh remained silent, but his attention did not leave her. She continued, My father taught me sections, elevations, estimates, drainage, timber settlement, and repair specifications. After his death, Jasper allowed me to continue only when the work served the estate. The dairy floor at Briarcombe was mine. The eastern cottages were mine. The stable roof correction was mine. Jasper signed each one. Lady Norwood set down her teacup. You were supported by this family. You owed us usefulness. Usefulness is not surrender. No patron would have accepted a woman's name on structural work. Then Jasper should not have accepted the benefit of it. Jasper placed one hand on the table. You speak as though a few lines make you an architect. I have not called myself one. Susanna's voice remained calm. I have said that I drew the work you claimed. Mr. Bell examined another sheet. Who taught you this revision system? My father. Did Sir Jasper use it? No. Could he reproduce it? Jasper answered before she did. This is becoming insulting. Hugh finally spoke. Only if you cannot. The room fell still. Jasper looked toward the mounted design, but offered no explanation. Mr. Bell set down the study. The technical reasoning belongs to the person who produced these stages. The final competition sheet follows Miss Norwood's method. The Countess's secretary recorded the sentence. Susanna felt no triumph. Proof offered relief, but not safety. The earlier 1846 corrective plan still remained at Briarcombe, beyond her control. Without it, Jasper could still argue that she had created only the later competition design, and not the warning that should have governed the original refurbishment. Hugh seemed to understand the limit. "Do these studies establish the 1846 specification?" he asked. "No," Susanna replied. "They establish the 1847 competition work. The earlier records must be recovered separately." Jasper gave a quiet laugh. "If they exist, they existed when you took them. Be careful." "I have been careful for years." The Countess looked from one cousin to the other. "Miss Norwood will remain at Davenant House until this matter is resolved." Lady Norwood straightened. "That is unnecessary. It is my decision. She belongs with her family." Susanna turned to her aunt. "I am your relation, not your possession." Jasper took one step toward her. Hugh did not move between them. He simply said, "Miss Norwood has answered." Jasper stopped. The Countess continued, "She will be received here as my guest, with Mrs. Hollis available whenever companionship is required. No letter addressed to Miss Norwood is to be intercepted. No paper belonging to her is to be removed." The last sentence struck Jasper harder than any accusation. He bowed with stiff formality, then left with Lady Norwood and Selina. The door closed. For several seconds, Susanna stood beside the open portfolio, listening to the absence of commands. Freedom did not feel like celebration. It felt like a room in which no one had yet told her where to stand. Later, in the Countess's morning room, Hugh found Susanna studying one of Mr. Bell's copied sections. The Countess sat nearby with her correspondence, preserving propriety, without pretending not to notice them. Hugh carried a slim technical volume, but stopped before placing it on the table. "There is a recent chapter on timber vibration," he said. "Would you care to see it?" Susanna looked up. Yes. Only then did he set it beside her. The small restraint affected her more than a grand courtesy would have done. "You learn quickly," she said. "I am trying not to make the same mistake twice. Most powerful men prefer to make a new one." A brief smile touched his face. "Then I shall have to be inventive." Susanna opened the book. Hugh noticed that she shifted her chair until the light from the window fell evenly across the page. He remembered she had done the same before examining the competition sheet. She noticed details because details had kept her safe. "Do you want your authorship announced now?" he asked. "No." Even after Mr. Bell's conclusion, "These studies prove the competition design. Jasper still controls the earlier papers. London may admire a clever woman for one evening and call her a liar the next if a man produces a document with better seals." Hugh did not argue. "Then your name remains private." Susanna glanced toward the cedar case he had brought into the room. "And the glove?" "I will keep it until you ask for it. Keep it until the matter is settled." He rested one hand beside the case, but did not open it. "I searched for you because I believed I owed you thanks. For saving the Countess's niece? For seeing what the rest of us ignored?" Susanna looked toward the window. People of rank are praised for noticing what others have been trained to hide from them. Hugh absorbed the rebuke. "Then I would rather learn to notice before praise becomes necessary." Their eyes met. No declaration followed. The silence between them held more promise than one would have done. Beyond the half-closed door, Selina stood in the corridor long enough to hear Hugh tell the Countess that every Norwood project bearing Jasper's signature should be reviewed. She left without making a sound. Before midnight, a private message was on its way to Jasper, warning him that Susanna's drawings were no longer the only things in danger of being examined. During the 3 weeks that followed, Hugh learned that calling upon Susanna required more discipline than commanding a household and considerably more honesty than most courtship. He came to Davenant House at the proper morning hour. Never before the Countess was ready to receive him, and never so late that his presence invited speculation. Mrs. Hollis often sat near the fire with her sewing, while the Countess answered correspondence at a small escritoire. Susanna worked at the long table by the windows, where the winter light fell evenly across paper. Hugh brought no jewels, no flowers, and no sentimental volume chosen by a bookseller who believed every woman admired the same poetry. Instead, on the 12th of January, he arrived with a rolled plan from Kingscote Abbey. "My steward wishes to remove standing water from the western stable yard before spring," he said. "The proposed route passes beneath the feed store. I have been assured this is sensible." Susanna did not touch the plan until he placed it flat and moved his hands away. "Are you asking for my opinion or inviting me to confirm his? I am hoping you will prevent an expensive mistake." "That sounds more honest." She studied the fall of the ground, the width of the outlet, and the position of the foundation. Hugh watched her eyes move across the page. She never rushed to appear clever. She paused where another person might have filled silence with confidence. At last, she pointed to the narrow channel marked near the feed store. "This outlet cannot carry the volume entering from the yard. My surveyor believes the gradient is sufficient. The gradient may be, the width is not." She traced a shorter route toward the lower boundary wall. "The first heavy rain will force water beneath the foundation. Your feed store will become a very costly pond." Hugh glanced at the Countess. "I was told the longer course protected the wall. It protects the man who drew it from having to admit he chose the wrong outlet." A laugh escaped him before he could restrain it. "You are severe with absent men, only when their mistakes are present." She handed him the pencil. "Have the levels taken again. Do not accept my correction merely because it is mine. You do not require obedience. I require evidence." Hugh ordered the measurements repeated that afternoon. 2 days later, the report confirmed Susanna's judgment. The lower wall offered a safer discharge, while the original route would indeed have endangered the feed store foundation. Hugh returned with the amended plan. He placed it before her without ceremony. "The horses, the grain, and my steward's dignity have all survived." Susanna read the revised figures. "Your surveyor agreed. He sent 6 pages explaining why his first recommendation had been misunderstood. Then he has apologized in the manner of his profession, without using the word. Naturally." Their eyes met. A smile touched her mouth before she lowered her gaze. Hugh had been praised all his life for decisions other men prepared. Susanna gave him something rarer. She expected him to examine what stood beneath his name. On the final morning of January, the Countess permitted Hugh, Susanna, and Mr. Bell to enter the closed west gallery. She accompanied them, and the steward unlocked the barrier himself. The damaged opening remained unrepaired. The principal pieces of the fallen rail had been labelled and stored in the adjoining withdrawing room. The failed western pin and broken walnut rosette still lay inside the steward's locked evidence box. He opened it only after the Countess and Mr. Bell were present. The white glove was not among them. It remained inside the cedar case in Hugh's possession. Susanna stopped several feet from the broken section. Her left hand closed briefly around her right wrist. Hugh remembered the force with which she had struck the pillar. "Does your shoulder still pain you?" he asked. She looked at him, surprised that he remembered. "No, it healed by spring." No physician was called. The words came out more sharply than he intended. Lady Norwood considered one unnecessary. Hugh looked toward the gap in the rail. "I see." Susanna heard anger in his restraint, but he did not turn it into a promise of punishment. He waited for her to continue. "The chandeliers moved before the rosette did," she said. "I noticed them." "You did?" "I thought the vibration came from the dancing." She looked toward the dark crystals hanging above the ballroom. Powerful people often mistake warning signs for background noise. There was no triumph in the sentence. Hugh rested one hand on the sound portion of rail, well away from the break. What should a powerful person do instead? Ask who has learned to notice what he can afford to ignore. Mr. Bell called them forward and indicated the path by which movement had travelled through the decorative rail toward the western joint. Susanna explained the concentration of force in short, precise sentences. Hugh asked only when she finished each point. He did not repeat her explanation in simpler words for the Countess. He did not praise her before Mr. Bell confirmed the technical conclusion. When they left the gallery, he understood something he had not known at the ball. Susanna's attention was not merely a gift inherited from her father. It was a survival habit. People without power learned to notice everything because danger rarely announced itself twice. That evening, the Countess held a small dinner for several patrons, interested in the eventual restoration of both galleries. Susanna wore dark green and a small brooch that had belonged to her mother. Hugh sat across from her. Their placement was proper, deliberate, and noticed. Conversation remained civil, until Lord Markham, a wealthy patron, with a talent for mistaking confidence for wit, asked whether Susanna intended to supervise the builders herself. "Only if they require supervision," she replied. He smiled toward Hugh. "Your Grace appears to have acquired a little builder." Hugh set down his wineglass. Before he could answer, Susanna turned to Markham. "A sound rail cares nothing for the sex of the person who draws it, my lord." The table quieted. Markham gave a short laugh. "You misunderstand me." "Then you may explain yourself more clearly." Hugh saw no appeal in her face. She did not need rescue from a sentence she had already answered. He let one measured second pass before speaking. "Miss Norwood is correct. The rail has shown better judgment than most of the people who admired it." The Countess changed the subject with elegant finality. Conversation resumed. But Susanna looked at Hugh once across the candles. He had not spoken before her. He had stood behind the answer she chose. Later, in the drawing room, he found her examining a volume on Gothic roof structures. The Countess sat nearby, and Mrs. Hollis occupied a chair by the hearth. Hugh reached for the same page Susanna meant to turn. Their hands stopped less than an inch apart. Neither touched the other. He withdrew first. Susanna noticed. "You are becoming cautious, Your Grace." "I am trying to become accurate. Those are not always the same thing, no. But caution is an improvement over assumption." He lowered his voice. "There is something you should know." He told her a society paper was preparing a caricature of the unnamed woman from the gallery. The details were vague, but the intended figure was clear. A frightened female alarmist, a romantic fool who left a glove for a duke. "I can prevent them from printing your likeness," Hugh said. "I may not be able to prevent the story." "Then let the story remain without my name. They will make her ridiculous. They already have. If Jasper uses that silence to shape the account." Susanna closed the book. "My privacy does not become his weapon unless you surrender it for me." Hugh heard the warning. He believed he understood it. "I will not name you." Thank you. The simplicity of her answer made the promise feel heavier. 2 evenings later, on the 3rd February, Davenant House hosted a charity supper. Near the end of the meal, Susanna Norwood rose with a glass in her hand and a smile prepared for witnesses. "We have heard so much," she said, "about the Duke's mysterious woman. It seems only fair to tell you that she is merely a frightened household dependent who mistook panic for expertise." Across the room, Susanna went still. Hugh saw every face turn toward the insult, and protective anger rose before judgment could stop it. He stood. Hugh stood before caution could reach him. Around the charity supper table, conversation broke into small, expectant silences. Selina remained on her feet, with one hand around the stem of her glass, her smile polished enough to make cruelty resemble wit. Susanna sat 3 places from the Countess. She did not look at Selina, she looked at Hugh. He remembered her warning from 2 evenings earlier. "My privacy does not become his weapon unless you surrender it for me." He should have let her answer. He should have trusted the woman who had faced a failing gallery without waiting for permission. Instead, he saw the room preparing to laugh at her courage and allowed anger to make the decision. "The woman Miss Selina describes as frightened is Miss Susanna Norwood," he said. Every face turned. She warned of the gallery failure before anyone else understood the danger. She saved Lady Davenant's niece, and she has shown more courage than those who prefer to mock her while withholding her name. The change in the room was immediate. Fans lowered. Shoulders shifted. A lady near the Countess whispered that Susanna must be extraordinary. Lord Markham stared at his wine. Admiration passed across the table as quickly as mockery had done. Susanna felt none of its warmth. She felt the attention close around her. A year earlier, no one had thought her name worth recording. Now the Duke had spoken it, and society claimed the right to examine every expression on her face. Hugh met her eyes and understood too late that she was not grateful. Jasper rose slowly. He wore the calm expression of a man who had arrived prepared for exactly this mistake. "Your Grace has omitted a material fact." Hugh turned toward him. A footman, waiting near the wall, stepped forward with a flat leather case. Susanna had never seen it before. Jasper opened the clasps and removed a tracing sheet protected between stiff boards. "Miss Norwood did not merely observe the West Gallery," he said. "She prepared the construction tracing that specified the fastening which failed." The room changed again. Jasper carried the sheet to the Countess's end of the table and held it beneath the candles. It showed the western balustrade in section. The dimensions beneath the rail specified narrow pins of the same inadequate size as the failed fastening preserved in the steward's evidence box. At the lower corner appeared the initials SN. They resembled Susanna's hand closely enough to trouble anyone who wanted to believe her. Hugh left his place and examined the sheet without touching it. This was not the refined competition design presented in January. It was dated November 1846, during the original refurbishment. "Those are your initials," Jasper said. Susanna stood. "They resemble my initials. They are yours. I have never seen that tracing." Selina set down her glass. How convenient. Hugh looked from the copied initials to the figures. The sheet carried none of the double-line development he had seen in Susanna's dated competition studies. It presented the unsafe measurement as though no earlier observation or correction had existed. That absence mattered, but only to those who understood her method. To the rest of the room, the initials were enough. Jasper continued. "My cousin was permitted to copy technical papers under supervision. I believed the exercise harmless. I did not know she had altered the fastening dimensions before the builder received the tracing. That is false, Susanna said. Her voice was steady. My 1846 corrective plan specified wrought iron, cramps of a heavier gauge. Then produce it. It remains at Briarcombe, if you have not removed it. No such plan exists. You took it from my father's workroom. A murmur moved through the guests. Lady Norwood pressed a handkerchief to her lips. Susanna, don't make this uglier. Susanna looked at her aunt. It became ugly when Jasper attached my initials to unsafe work. Selina gave a sorrowful shake of her head, performing reluctance for the room. She knew where the rail would fail. She stood beneath the western turn. She left the glove where His Grace would find it. Surely others will wonder whether the rescue was meant to conceal her responsibility. Hugh's voice hardened. Take care. I'm only saying what society will say tomorrow. She vanished before questions could be asked, and now we learn the Duke spent a year searching for her. The private history of Hugh's search became entertainment in an instant. Several guests looked at him with romantic fascination. Others studied Susanna as though ambition had transformed her into a danger. He had intended to end the cruelty. Instead, he had given it her name. This tracing proves nothing until its origin is established, Hugh said. It bears her initials, Jasper replied. Initials can be copied, and a woman's denial can be rehearsed. Susanna did not look at Jasper. She looked at Hugh. Did you tell them? Not about the search. You told them who I am. He felt the truth before he answered. Yes. After promising you wouldn't. Yes. The admission silenced him more completely than defense could have done. The Countess rose. The tracing will be placed in my solicitor's custody tonight. No one will remove, alter, or destroy it. Jasper held the boards a moment too long before releasing them to the Countess's secretary. Hugh saw the hesitation. So did Susanna. The secretary carried the tracing from the room. It would not return to Jasper. The accusation will be examined, Hugh said. Until then, no conclusion should be drawn. Susanna's expression remained controlled. That sounds very reasonable. It is the proper course. After you made my identity public before the papers, that could defend me were within my reach. I was trying to protect you. You were trying to correct the room. They were making you ridiculous. Now they may call me dangerous instead. Hugh had no answer that did not become an excuse. Jasper placed one hand on the back of his chair. The only question is whether Miss Norwood created the defect and arranged the rescue to conceal it. You will not accuse her of endangering a child without proof, Hugh said. The tracing is proof. It is evidence of an accusation. Nothing more. Lord Markham cleared his throat. Surely an impartial inspection will settle the matter. Susanna turned toward him. Is that what this room feels like to you, my lord? He lowered his gaze. One of the ladies who had invited Susanna to call the following week quietly drew her card case from her reticule. She slipped out the visiting card she had offered that afternoon and returned it to the case without meeting Susanna's eyes. The gesture was small. It wounded more than open insult. Society had not waited for an inspection. The Countess stepped towards Susanna. You may remain at Davenant House. No one will ask you to defend yourself tonight. Thank you, but I wish to leave this room. Lady Norwood rose. Susanna, don't behave like a martyr. I am leaving supper, not entering history. A few guests looked away. Susanna turned to Jasper. You will not touch my papers at Briarcombe. You have no authority to command me. No, only enough knowledge to make you fear what they contain. His face tightened. Hugh moved as if to follow when the Countess called for her carriage. Susanna stopped him with one look. Not now. He obeyed. That obedience cost more than crossing the room would have done. The Countess sent Mrs. Hollis with Susanna and ordered the side entrance used so she would not pass. The curious servants gathered near the front hall. In the corridor, Susanna fastened her cloak with hands that remained steady until the final clasps. Hugh appeared at the far end, but did not approach. She could see the struggle in him. Every instinct urged him to act. For once he waited. Susanna gave no permission, so he remained several paces away. "I am sorry," he said. "You should be. I will find how that tracing was made. That is necessary. It is not forgiveness." "I know." The carriage door opened. Cold February air entered the hall. Susanna placed one hand on the frame, then looked back at him. "You spent a year searching for my name, Your Grace. You should have asked before giving it away." She entered the carriage. Hugh stood beneath the lamps as it rolled from Davenant House, carrying the woman he had finally found and the trust he had surrendered in a single sentence. The next morning, Hugh came to Davenant House before the hour when society considered calls proper. But he did not ask the Countess to bend custom for him. He waited in the small morning room until she was ready to receive him. And when Susanna entered with Mrs. Hollis beside her, he rose without stepping forward. The cedar case rested on the table between them. "I asked to see you because I owe you an apology," he said. "Not an explanation, an apology." Susanna remained standing. "Then give me one." Hugh accepted the sharpness without defense. "I broke my word. I used your name because I believed I could stop the room from humiliating you. I did not ask whether you wanted that protection, and I made your identity public before you had space to defend yourself. I was wrong." The Countess sat near the fire, silent and attentive. Susanna looked at him for a long moment. His apology was cleaner than she had expected. That did not make the wound smaller. "You were angry on my behalf," she said. "Yes, and you decided your anger gave you authority over my choice. Yes, you did not doubt me, no, but you still did not trust me to decide how I should be defended." Hugh's face tightened with recognition. "That is true." Susanna moved to the window. A footman crossed the square below, carrying a tray of calling cards. One had arrived for her before the charity supper, offered by a lady who had praised her conversation. That morning, the same card had been quietly withdrawn through the Countess's secretary, accompanied by no explanation. Society had not waited for evidence. It had merely reversed direction. "I am going to Briarcombe," Susanna said. "The earlier corrective records are there, if Jasper has not destroyed them." Hugh answered too quickly. "I can send men to retrieve them." Susanna turned. "No," he stopped. "Jasper took work made by my hand. I will be the one to recover it. He may try to prevent you. Then I will know exactly what he is willing to do. You should not face him alone." "I won't. Mrs. Hollis will travel with me. Lady Norwood is at Briarcombe. The steward will witness any room opened. I will not break a lock or remove anything that is not mine." Hugh looked as though every instinct in him urged action. For once, he restrained each one. "What would you have me do?" The question reached her more deeply than another promise could have done. "Keep the altered tracing in the Countess's solicitor's custody. Speak to no paper about me. Send no one to Briarcombe without my request." "Done." Susanna glanced at the cedar case. Hugh lifted it with both hands and offered it to her. "This belongs to you." She took the case. The wood held the warmth of his touch. When she opened it, the white glove lay inside, with the faint red chalk still visible along the inner forefinger. Fine walnut dust remained near the cuff. It looked ordinary enough to have been forgotten by anyone who had not understood what it carried. "You kept it exactly as it was," she said. "It was all I had of you." Their eyes met. The words held no demand. Susanna closed the lid. "Now it will be with me." Hugh bowed his head, where it should have been. 2 hours later, she placed the cedar case inside her locked, linen-backed portfolio beside the dated competition studies. The Countess had arranged a private carriage and asked Mrs. Hollis, a widowed cousin of mature years and unassailable propriety, to accompany her. Hugh did not follow. He sent no rider ahead and no servant after them. The absence stayed with Susanna more than she wished to admit. They left London on the 5th February beneath a low grey sky and stopped that night at a respectable coaching inn near Guildford. By late afternoon on the 7th of February, Briarcombe Lodge appeared beyond bare hedges and wet fields, its pale stone front unchanged from the year before. Susanna knew better than to trust appearances. Lady Norwood received them in the drawing-room with the expression of a woman forced to welcome an inconvenience. "You have returned quickly. I came for my papers. The papers you describe belong to the household. My drawings do not." Lady Norwood glanced at Mrs. Hollis and altered her tone. "This family has endured enough public embarrassment. The embarrassment became public when Jasper accused me before witnesses. You might have answered with dignity." "I did. I left." The older woman's mouth tightened. Selina remained in London, which removed one source of noise, but not danger. Lady Norwood led them toward the former survey room at the rear of the house. The door was locked. "Jasper ordered it secured after your departure," she said. "Who has the key?" "The steward." The steward was summoned and produced it reluctantly. Mrs. Hollis stood beside Susanna as the door opened. The room smelled of dust, paste, and cold stone. Her father's sloped drafting table remained beneath the north window. The shelves had been cleared. The visible folios were gone. Susanna crossed to the map cabinet and opened the shallow drawers. Empty. "You see," Lady Norwood said, "there is nothing here." Susanna did not answer. She examined the floor. Dust lay evenly beneath the cabinet, except for 2 narrow arcs where its feet had shifted. Someone had moved it recently, then tried to return it to the same place. "Who moved the cabinet?" she asked. Lady Norwood's gaze hardened. "I cannot account for every piece of furniture." "Then the carpenter may." Mr. Dawes was summoned from the yard. He had worked at Briarcombe since Susanna was a child. His hair had gone white, but his hands remained steady. He stopped at the threshold and removed his cap. "You wished to see me, Miss Norwood? Did you move this cabinet after I left for London?" His eyes flickered toward Lady Norwood. "I rehung the back, miss." "At whose instruction?" "Sir Jasper's." Lady Norwood stepped forward. "This is becoming impertinent." Susanna kept her attention on the carpenter. "Did Sir Jasper remove papers from this room?" Mr. Dawes hesitated. He had several rolls taken to the estate office after the charity supper. "I carried one myself, linen-backed, tied with green tape." Susanna felt the first clear movement in the mystery. Jasper had not destroyed everything. At least one original plan had survived long enough to be moved. "Did you see where it was placed?" "No, miss. Sir Jasper dismissed me at the office door." "And the cabinet?" "He told me to mend the rear brace and set it tighter to the wall." Susanna looked again at the dust marks. The cabinet had not merely been repaired. It had been turned. Her father had built narrow storage spaces into furniture whenever he feared damp. Flat places for field notes, cavities where paper could remain dry and hidden. "Please move it," she said. Lady Norwood drew herself up. "You have no right to dismantle household furniture." "We are moving a cabinet with you, Mrs. Hollis, the steward, and the house carpenter present. Nothing will leave this room until it is identified." The clarity of the arrangement left little room for objection. Mr. Dawes and the steward pulled the cabinet away from the wall. Behind it, the plaster showed a clean rectangle. Susanna knelt. One strip of wood across the back bore newer pegs than the rest. "May this be removed without damaging the cabinet?" she asked. Mr. Dawes examined it. "It's only a cover batten, miss." "Then remove it, please." He worked a thin blade beneath the strip and eased it free. A narrow cavity appeared inside the frame. It held one small leather-bound book. Nothing more. Susanna reached in and withdrew it. The cover was worn smooth at the corners. Her father's initials had been pressed into the leather. She opened the first page. Measurements filled the paper in his exact hand. Dates, timber depths, margin corrections. Halfway through, another hand appeared beside his, her own double-line notation, revised dimensions, the original Davenant measurements. Lady Norwood went very still. Susanna closed the book against her palm. The plan was still missing, but Jasper had failed to erase the path by which her mind had reached the truth. By the morning of the 8th February, the measuring book had become more dangerous to Jasper than any accusation Susanna could have made. She placed it on her father's old work table, while Mrs. Hollis, Lady Norwood, the steward, and Mr. Dawes remained in the room. No one could later claim she had written into it alone. The leather cover opened stiffly beneath her hand. Her father's measurements filled the first half in dark brown ink. Walnut depth, joint spacing. The condition of the western wall. The original dimensions of the Davenant balustrade. Near the center, his handwriting stopped. Susanna's began. Her script was narrower, but the method was the same one he had taught her. The first figure recorded what already existed. The second marked what she had observed after Waite crossed the western approach. A pair of parallel lines showed where she revised the measurement. The final entry specified heavier wrought iron cramps and a doubled support at the turn. "This is how I worked," she said. "The tracing Jasper showed in London uses my initials, but it does not follow this sequence." Lady Norwood stood near the door, with her hands clasped tightly. Anyone could copy measurements into an old book. The dates run in order. The ink changes with the work. My father's entries lead into mine. Susanna touched the margin where a correction had been made around a rain stain. The altered tracing begins with the first dimension and then jumps directly to the unsafe pin. It has no observation, no intermediate correction, and no reason for the change. Someone copied the name of my method without understanding it. Mrs. Hollis leaned closer, careful not to touch the page. "Would another draftsman recognize the difference?" "Mr. Bell should. And Sir Jasper?" "Jasper recognizes only the final line he can sign." Lady Norwood's mouth hardened. "You speak as if he has never protected you." Susanna looked at her. "He has protected his use of me." The answer left no room for comfort. Susanna asked the steward to record where the book had been found, who had witnessed its discovery, and that it had not left the room before examination. He obeyed with visible care. Mr. Dawes shifted his cap between his hands. "The rolled plan I carried to the estate office was broader than the cottage sections, miss." Susanna turned to him. "How broad?" "Near the width of this table." "Was it tied with green tape?" "Yes." "Did Sir Jasper open it?" "Not before me. He took it inside and dismissed me." Susanna closed the measuring book. Then we will search the estate office. Lady Norwood stepped into her path. You cannot invade Jasper's private room. The steward will unlock it. You and Mrs. Hollis will remain present. I will touch nothing unrelated to my work. And if you find nothing, then we will know he moved it again. The estate office overlooked the bare orchard. Its shelves held rent rolls, tenant letters, account books, and old county maps, arranged with the rigid neatness of a man who believed order could imitate honesty. The steward unlocked the door. Susanna began with the map press because linen-backed plans were meant to be kept flat. The drawers contained boundary surveys and estate divisions, but no Davenant section. She did not open Jasper's private correspondence. She did not search the locked cash drawer. She examined only places large enough to hold the missing sheet. Mr. Dawes studied a stack of obsolete maps leaning against the wall. The roll I carried would not fit those drawers without folding. Susanna followed his gaze. One map bore the date 1819. Its rollers were thick, and the linen backing had separated slightly along one edge. She remembered Jasper's impatience with old records. A document he considered useless would make a perfect hiding place. Place that one on the table, she said. The steward and Mr. Dawes lifted it together. Lady Norwood drew a breath so quietly that only Susanna heard. You know what is there, Susanna said. I know Jasper moved papers for safekeeping. From whom? From Scandal. No, from me. Susanna loosened the faded ties. The 1819 rent map opened across the table. Nothing lay on its surface. She lifted one edge and found a second sheet pressed between the map and its backing. The paper had been folded once, despite its linen support. Her father had taught her never to fold a working section. Jasper had cared more about concealment than preservation. Susanna drew it free. In the lower corner was her father's small press mark. Beneath it stood her dated initials. Across the central section ran the stronger wrought iron specification and the doubled western support she had drawn in 1846. There were no removable inspection panels. Those belonged only to the refined competition design, completed the following autumn. The distinction was exact. The original plan showed she had tried to correct before the gallery failed. The later studies showed how she had improved that solution after seeing how easily hidden work could be falsified. Lady Norwood stared at the sheet. Jasper used your work because no one would have commissioned you directly. He used it because it was sound. A woman cannot carry public responsibility for structural contracts. Susanna looked at the unsafe dimensions written in her name on Jasper's tracing. Yet I was expected to carry public blame for one. The family had debts. Debt explains fear. It does not turn theft into duty. Everything was done to preserve the estate, not the people beneath that gallery. Lady Norwood's composure broke by the smallest degree. No one expected it to fall. That is what people say when they accept danger for someone else. Susanna folded the plan only along the crease Jasper had already made. She placed it beside the measuring book, then opened her locked portfolio. The cedar case containing the white glove lay inside with the dated competition studies. She added the 1846 corrective plan and measuring book, closed the straps and turned the key. From that moment, neither document left her possession. In London, Hugh received a certified copy of the Birmingham supplier entry on the 10th February. The original ledger remained with the supplier. His solicitor had verified the crescent maker's stamp, the date, the intermediary builder, and the quantity ordered. Hugh read the figure twice. Enough for both galleries, he said. If the order was used as delivered, the solicitor replied. Can we prove where every pin went? Not yet. The builder may have retained invoices or written instructions. Contact him. He may refuse. Then ask for a written account and copies of any surviving payment orders. Make it clear that Lady Davenant is reviewing losses connected with defective work. The solicitor made a note. Hugh placed a printed caricature on the desk. It showed a masked woman loosening a gallery rail while glancing toward a duke below. The caption mocked the architectural heroine. And this? He asked. The publisher claims the idea came from society gossip. Ass, who supplied the initials, and the allegation that the rescue was staged. Do not threaten him. Give him a reason to preserve his papers. You believe Miss Selina is involved. I believe she enjoys cruelty too much to leave it entirely to chance. Hugh did not issue a public denial. Susanna had forbidden it, and he would not break the same promise in another form. Instead, he sent a certified summary of the supplier entry through the Davenant household, accompanied by one question. What do you wish me to do? The packet reached Briarcombe on the 12th February. Susanna read it in the former survey room with Mrs. Hollis present. The quantity matched more than the failed western section. It was sufficient for the East Gallery as well. She looked from the supplier figures to the recovered 1846 plan. Jasper had approved a hidden substitution once. Nothing in his conduct suggested he would have paid for proper iron on the opposite side. The East Gallery had not failed because it had carried less strain, not because it was safe. Susanna took up her pen. Her reply required no argument and no appeal to sentiment. Do not allow the East Gallery to open. Susanna's warning reached Davenant House shortly after noon on the 13th February, while servants were arranging chairs beneath the East Gallery for a charitable musicale. The West Gallery remained closed, but the opposite side had never failed, and the Countess had agreed to reopen it for guests that evening. Hugh read the single sentence twice. Do not allow the East Gallery to open. He crossed the ballroom without waiting for anyone to follow. Stop the preparations, he told the steward. Close the gallery doors. The steward glanced toward the musicians' platform. At once, Your Grace, at once. Within minutes, the east staircase was cleared. The doors were shut and locked before any guest entered the house. No rosette, fastening, or panel was touched. The Countess found Hugh beneath the gallery with Susanna's note still in his hand. You have closed half my ballroom on the afternoon of a charitable event. Yes, on the strength of one sentence, on the judgment behind it. Jasper stood several paces away, having arrived early to enjoy the reopening of the work he had supervised. His expression sharpened. You cannot mean to indulge this further. Hugh turned to him. Miss Norwood believes the East Gallery may contain the same substituted pins as the West. She has not inspected it. Neither have we. Then inspect it now. Not without her, Jasper laughed. You would inconvenience 200 guests because an aggrieved woman has sent a command from Hampshire. If she is wrong, we lose an evening. Hugh folded the note. If she is right, the cost of ignoring her will be measured differently. The Countess looked toward the sealed doors. Could the quantity in the supplier entry truly cover both galleries? It could. We do not yet know whether it did. Then this is suspicion. It is risk. Jasper stepped closer. It is obsession dressed as caution. You spent a year seeking her, and now you permit her to govern a house from 100 miles away. Hugh did not raise his voice. I am governing my own decision. You are allowing sentiment to replace evidence. No, I am refusing to create evidence by placing guests upon an unsafe floor. The Countess's irritation had not disappeared, but fear had entered beside it. She remembered her niece against the west rail. "The musicale will be moved to the lower drawing rooms," she said. "The east gallery will remain closed." Jasper looked at her in disbelief. "Lady Davenant, this will be interpreted as an admission. It will be interpreted as my house." The answer ended the argument. Hugh instructed the steward to keep the keys, record the hour of closure, and permit no workmen inside. No wax seals were added yet. Formal examination would require witnesses and a selected section. For now, the locked doors were enough to prevent casual interference. Jasper demanded that the gallery be opened before the evening ended. Hugh refused. Miss Norwood identified the danger. "She will be present when it is examined." "You trust her without proof." "I trust that she has earned the right not to be excluded from the testing of her own warning." By nightfall, the charitable supper had been rearranged below stairs and in the drawing rooms. Society laughed at Hugh's caution. One guest called the closed gallery the Duke's new monument to romantic alarm. Hugh accepted every remark without using Susanna's name in reply. He had already learned what happened when he tried to protect her by speaking for her. Before dawn on the 14th February, Hugh left London with the Countess and Mr. Bell. Hugh carried the certified copy of the Birmingham supplier entry in a locked document case. Mr. Bell carried only instruments, blank paper, and his own notes. The original supplier ledger remained in Birmingham. The failed western pin and broken rosette remained locked at Davenant House. The altered tracing remained with the Countess's solicitor. Nothing central to the inquiry travelled except the copy Hugh had lawful possession of. They reached a posting inn near Guildford after dark. The next morning brought sleet thick enough to blur the road and turn every slope into mud beneath the wheels. Progress slowed before noon. By late afternoon, a blocked stretch forced the party to stop a second night at a smaller inn where the Countess endured cold sheets and a supper she described as an assault upon potatoes. They resumed at first light on the 16th and reached Briarcombe Lodge near dusk. Susanna met them in the former survey room. She wore a dark wool gown, and her locked linen-backed portfolio rested on the table beside her. The cedar case containing the white glove remained inside it with the measuring book, the recovered 1846 corrective plan, and the dated competition studies. None had left her possession. Mrs. Hollis stood near the fire. Lady Norwood remained present because the papers had been found in her household. Hugh stopped several feet from Susanna. The journey had given him 2 days to prepare an apology and no right to demand that it be accepted. "I do not expect proper behavior now to purchase forgiveness for improper behavior before," he said. Susanna studied him. "That is fortunate." He inclined his head. "I closed the East Gallery yesterday." A change passed through her face, not softness, but relief. Before inspecting it, before anyone entered it, and Jasper objected, loudly, with admirable stamina. The corner of her mouth almost moved. Hugh did not press the moment. Susanna unlocked the portfolio herself. She removed the measuring book first, then the original corrective plan. She kept the cedar case and competition studies inside. Mr. Bell approached only after she invited him. Over the next hour, he compared the measurements, dated revisions, and material specifications. Susanna explained no point twice. The 1846 plan called for heavier wrought iron cramps and doubled support at the western turn. The 1847 competition work refined that solution by adding removable inspection panels and clearer access to the hidden fastenings. "The sequence is coherent," Mr. Bell said. "The earlier plan addresses the weakness. The later design improves inspection after the failure exposed how easily unsuitable work could be concealed." Hugh placed the certified supplier copy beside the plans without touching Susanna's papers. The ordered quantity would have been enough for both galleries. Mr. Bell read the entry. "Enough, yes, not proof that all were installed." "Then the East Gallery must answer that question," Susanna said. Lady Norwood looked toward the window. Jasper believed the builder had followed the proper specification. Susanna did not look at her. "Then an untouched fastening will support him." Hugh watched Susanna return one hand to the edge of the original plan. "How do you wish the examination conducted?" he asked. "A section must be selected without our choosing the most suspicious one. The doors should remain closed until witnesses are present. No load test. We remove one untouched rosette and inspect what is behind it." "Who chooses the section?" Mr. Bell asked. "Jasper should draw the number himself." The suggestion silenced the room. Susanna continued. "If the pin is proper, he may say chance favored him. If it is not, he cannot say we selected a damaged place." Hugh nodded. "You should lead the technical explanation." "Mr. Bell must confirm material and dimensions." "Of course. The Countess controls the house. Her steward records the opening. Jasper may bring a solicitor." "And where do you want me?" Hugh asked. Susanna looked at him for a long moment. "Beside me, not before me. Then that is where I will stand." Mr. Bell began listing the practical steps required for removal. The Countess asked Mrs. Hollis to ring for tea. The small movements of the room resumed, but Susanna remained beside the table. Hugh had not moved closer. She looked at his right hand resting open against the chair back. The hand that had once lifted her glove from broken walnut had also given away her name. Both truths remained. She lowered her bare left hand between them. Not as forgiveness, not yet, as permission for one moment. Hugh understood. He placed his palm beneath hers without closing his fingers. Her hand rested there for 3 quiet breaths. Then she withdrew it, and he let her go. A rider arrived before supper, with a message from London. The Countess opened it in the survey room. Jasper demanded that the East Gallery be unsealed and examined before witnesses at once, so the household could see that Susanna's accusation was false. The Countess handed the note to her. Susanna read it, folded it once, and returned it. "Then he will be present when it answers him." They left Briarcombe on the 18th February beneath a clearing sky. Though the roads remained heavy from sleet, Susanna kept the locked, linen-backed portfolio beside her in the carriage for the entire journey. The white glove in its cedar case, the measuring book, the recovered 1846 corrective plan, and the dated competition studies never left her possession. Hugh travelled in the second carriage with the Countess and Mr. Bell. The certified supplier copy remained in his locked document case. No one suggested combining the papers for convenience. By then, they all understood that convenience had already caused enough damage. A broken axle delayed them outside Farnham, and they did not reach London until the afternoon of 20th February. Davenant House appeared quiet from the square, but the silence inside carried strain rather than peace. The steward met them in the entrance hall with the keys to the East Gallery doors. "No one has entered since your Grace ordered them closed," he told the Countess. "Sir Jasper came twice. I refused him both times." "Did he attempt to bring a workman?" Hugh asked. "On the second visit?" I told him Lady Davenant's instruction allowed no entry. The Countess nodded. You did correctly. They went directly to the ballroom. Dust lay undisturbed along the east stair. The locks showed no mark of force. At Susanna's request, the Countess's secretary wrote a household memorandum stating the hour, the condition of the doors, and the names of everyone present. The steward then pressed wax over the locks and added his seal beside the Countess's. Nothing within the gallery was examined. The failed western pin and broken walnut rosette remained inside the locked evidence box in the adjoining room. The steward opened that box only long enough for the Countess and Mr. Bell to confirm that both objects were still present. He locked it again and retained the key. The altered 1846 construction tracing remained in the Countess's solicitor's strong room. Hugh's certified supplier copy remained in his document case. Susanna carried her portfolio upstairs to the guest room and locked it in a cabinet while Mrs. Hollis watched. The order of things steadied her. Objects could be silenced almost as easily as women when other people decided where they belonged. This time, every paper and piece of metal had a known place. That evening, the Countess's solicitor arrived with news from the intermediary builder. He will not attend in person, he said. He claims illness and fears damage to his trade. Jasper's influence, Susanna thought, often appeared in the form of another man's fear. Will he provide anything? She asked. A sealed written account. He has also agreed to send copies of surviving instructions and payment orders connected with the Davenant work. The packet should arrive before tomorrow night. Have you told him which section will be opened? Hugh asked. No, I have told no one, because no section has yet been selected. And the publisher? The Countess said. He acknowledges receiving our inquiry. He has not surrendered the caricature drafts. Then Selina's conduct waits, Susanna said. The gallery does not. The next morning, the 20th February, Jasper came to Davenant House with his solicitor, and the composure of a man who believed confidence could still outlast proof. Lady Norwood accompanied him. Selina remained away, pleading indisposition. The Countess received them in the morning room. Susanna sat beside Mrs. Hollis. Hugh stood near the window, close enough to support her and far enough not to take possession of the conversation. Jasper placed his gloves on the table. This matter can still be resolved privately. It is private, the Countess replied. Only those connected with the accusation will attend the examination. I mean without examination. I am prepared to withdraw my claim to the competition prize if Miss Norwood withdraws her accusation regarding the original gallery. Susanna looked at him. You're offering to return what was mine in exchange for silence about what endangered other people. I am offering to spare you further scandal. The scandal did not begin when I spoke. Jasper's solicitor intervened. No one benefits from damaging the Norwood name. The people who enter houses repaired under that name may benefit considerably, Hugh said. Jasper turned toward him. Your Grace has already demonstrated that personal feeling governs your judgment. Then you should welcome a method that leaves my judgment irrelevant. Jasper's composure thinned. Open the gallery. Put men upon it. If the rail holds, this performance ends. No, Susanna said. A load test could create the very failure we are trying to prevent. You are afraid it will remain standing. I am unwilling to use guests or workmen as weights in your defense. Mr. Bell placed a simple elevation of the east gallery on the table. Susanna had asked him to mark every rosette by number while excluding the sections nearest the doors and any place that records showed had been repaired. 14 untouched positions remained. The Countess's secretary prepared 14 identical folded slips and placed them in a silver bowl. "You will draw the section," Susanna told Jasper. He looked at the bowl as though it were an insult. "Why should I participate in this theatre?" "Because if Mr. Bell or I choose, you will claim we selected the most suspicious point. And if the fastening is proper, then it will be recorded as proper. You would accept that?" "I accept evidence even when it is inconvenient." Hugh did not smile, but she saw the recognition in his eyes. Jasper reached into the bowl and removed one slip. He unfolded it. 14. Mr. Bell checked the elevation. 4th rosette east of the central arch. The Countess's secretary wrote the location into the memorandum. The other slips remained folded and were set aside. Jasper stared toward the sealed ballroom doors. His face revealed almost nothing, but his thumb pressed hard against the paper before he laid it down. Mr. Avery, the Davenant carpenter, who had been present after the collapse, entered carrying a small daybook. "I was asked whether I recorded the delivery," he said. "I did, my lady." He opened to an entry dated before the refurbishment. The page noted that Sir Jasper had called the specified wrought cramps extravagant, and had instructed the intermediary builder to provide a cheaper concealed fastening. A later line recorded the arrival of cast pins bearing a crescent stamp. Jasper's solicitor rose. "This is a carpenter's recollection, not a contract." "It is a dated household record," the Countess replied. "Its weight will be considered with the rest." Jasper looked at Avery. "You were not present for every discussion." "No, sir. Only the one I wrote down. You misunderstood me." Avery lowered his eyes, but his voice held. "I wrote the words before the work began, sir." The steward took the daybook into custody and locked it in the house office for the night. Susanna did not treat it as final proof. It showed pressure toward cheaper materials. But the pin behind the selected rosette still had to speak for itself. Before the meeting ended, she stated the order of the examination. Mr. Bell will supervise the removal. Mr. Avery will use the tools. The Countess controls access to the house. The steward will record every opening and transfer. I will explain the design and its revisions. Sir Jasper may have his solicitor present. Hugh waited until she had finished. "And me?" he asked. The question was quiet, but everyone heard it. Susanna looked toward the east gallery. "Beside me, not before me." Yes, no flourish followed. That made the answer matter more. The Countess limited invitations to those who had heard or repeated Jasper's accusation. The necessary solicitors, Mr. Bell, Mr. Avery, the steward, and Lady Norwood. Lord Markham received one because he had called for an impartial inspection at the charity supper. No newspaper was admitted. No curious guest could attend merely to enjoy a woman's vindication as another evening's entertainment. On the morning of the 22nd February, a sealed packet arrived from the intermediary builder. The Countess's solicitor received it in the presence of his clerk. Inside were the promised written account and copies of surviving payment instructions. He verified the signatures and seals, then closed the documents within his case. No one else read them before the physical section was opened. "If the pin is proper," he said, "these may prove irrelevant." "Then let the structure speak first," Susanna replied. At 11 o'clock, the witnesses entered the ballroom. The steward inspected the wax and confirmed both seals were intact. He broke them before the Countess, unlocked the doors, and opened the east gallery. Dust rested evenly across the floor. No tool mark disturbed the 4th rosette east of the central arch. Mr. Bell measured its position against the recorded elevation. Mr. Avery laid out a narrow blade, a small wooden mallet, and padded cloth to protect the carving. Jasper stood with his solicitor near the wall. Hugh took his place at Susanna's side, exactly where she had told him to stand. Mr. Avery slid the thin blade beneath the edge of rosette number 14. Mr. Avery eased the narrow blade beneath the edge of rosette number 14. For a moment, nothing moved. Then the carved walnut lifted with a faint wooden sigh. Every person in the east gallery leaned toward the opening. Mr. Bell raised one hand. No one touches it yet. Avery laid the rosette on padded cloth. Behind it, half concealed by dust and old paste, sat a dark metal fastening no thicker than a man's little finger. A shallow crescent mark showed near its center. The Countess drew a breath. Jasper did not move. Mr. Bell bent close without removing the pin. It appears to match the western fastening in form, gauge, and maker's stamp, he said. I will confirm only after it is taken out. Jasper's solicitor stepped forward. Appearance is not proof. No, Susanna said. That is why we are still looking. Hugh stood exactly where she had placed him, beside her and half a pace back. He said nothing. Mr. Avery loosened the wood around the fastening under Bell's direction. The pin came free with less resistance than a sound wrought iron cramp should have offered. Avery set it on clean cloth. The steward brought the locked evidence box from the adjoining room. Before the Countess, Mr. Bell, both solicitors and the secretary, he unlocked it and removed the failed western pin. The broken walnut rosette remained inside. Bell placed the two pieces of metal side by side. The eastern pin was intact. The western one had fractured, yet the likeness between them was unmistakable. Same dull surface, same narrow body, same crescent stamp. Bell measured both with calipers, then scraped a minute exposed edge where corrosion had not formed. Both are cast iron, he said. Both are undersized for the original specification. Both came from the same manufacture. Lord Markham looked toward Jasper. You drew the section yourself. Jasper's face had gone pale beneath its composure. The builder selected the materials. The builder followed an order, Susanna said. That is what remains to be shown. She did not allow the room to rush ahead of her. The physical fact came first. Two galleries had received the same concealed substitution. The West had failed under heavier movement. The East had merely been spared long enough to be opened before it did. The Countess looked along the carved rail with new disgust. All this beauty, she said quietly, and danger hidden behind every ornament. Susanna answered, decoration did not cause the danger. Secrecy did. The witnesses moved to the long table prepared in the ballroom below. The east pin travelled there on its marked cloth under the steward's supervision. The failed western pin followed from the evidence box. The Countess's secretary recorded each transfer. Susanna brought down her locked portfolio herself. She placed it before her, turned the key, and removed the measuring book, the recovered 1846 corrective plan, and the dated 1847 competition studies. The cedar case remained inside for the moment. The Countess's solicitor produced the altered 1846, tracing from his own custody. Susanna laid the papers in chronological order. This is the first fact, she said. The safe design existed before the gallery failed. She opened the measuring book to the Davenant entries. Her father's figures led into her own. She showed the observed movement, the double line correction, and the final specification for heavier wrought iron cramps and doubled support. Then she opened the original corrective plan. Her father's press mark stood in the lower corner beside Susanna's dated initials. This plan follows the method in the book. Mr. Bell confirmed it with a nod. Susanna then placed the altered tracing beside it. This sheet carries copied initials, but it does not carry the work that produced them. It begins with an inherited dimension and jumps directly to the unsafe pin. There is no observation, no correction, and no reason for the change. Jasper gave a strained laugh. You expect us to believe a method proves handwriting? No, I expect method to prove authorship when handwriting has been copied. She placed the 1847 competition studies on the other side. These later sheets refine the earlier solution. The removable inspection panels appear only here after the failure showed how easily hidden fastening could escape notice. Mr. Bell examined each document in turn. The development is continuous. The 1846 plan corrects the weakness. The 1847 studies extend the design so concealed work can be inspected. The altered tracing belongs to neither sequence. The Countess's secretary wrote his conclusion. Jasper's solicitor shifted his attention to the metal pins. Even if Miss Norwood designed the safer plan, that does not prove Sir Jasper ordered the substitution. Then we come to responsibility, Susanna said. Mr. Avery's daybook was brought from the steward's custody. The entry recorded Jasper calling the specified wrought cramps extravagant and requesting a cheaper concealed fastening. Hugh opened his locked document case and produced the certified copy of the Birmingham supplier entry. The quantity ordered was enough for both galleries. The maker's crescent matched both recovered pins. At last, the Countess's solicitor opened the sealed packet delivered that morning. He read the intermediary builder's written account aloud. The builder stated that Sir Jasper had approved the cast pins after being told they would reduce the expense and remain hidden beneath the walnut fascia. Copies of payment instructions followed. One carried Jasper's signature beneath the reduced sum. Jasper looked at the page as though it had betrayed him. The builder is protecting himself. He may be, Hugh said. That does not erase your signature. Lady Norwood rose. There were debts. The estate could not sustain every extravagant demand made by fashionable clients. Susanna turned to her. The safe iron was not an ornament. Jasper believed the work would hold. He believed that if it did not, someone else would bear the fall. Jasper's control broke. You speak as though I wished harm. No, Susanna said. You did something more ordinary. You accepted a danger because you expected it to remain hidden. The words landed harder than outrage. They gave him no grand villainy behind which to shelter. Only choice, only cost shifted onto strangers. The Countess stood. Sir Jasper Norwood will enter Davenant House no more. Every contract connected with his supervision is ended. My solicitors will seek recovery of the losses caused by this work and repayment for any commission obtained through misrepresentation. She looked at Lady Norwood. You and Miss Selina are no longer received here. Lady Norwood went white. You would destroy a family over one error. No, the Countess said. I am ending my part in allowing that family to destroy others. Mr. Bell then faced the witnesses. The safe 1846 corrective design is Miss Susanna Norwood's. The 1847 competition brace is a coherent refinement of her earlier work. Sir Jasper has not demonstrated authorship of either. Lord Markham lowered his head towards Susanna. I repeated the accusation before knowing the facts. You repeated it because a woman's guilt amused the room, she said. Remember that before you call your next gathering impartial. He had no answer. Only after Susanna had closed the measuring book did Hugh step forward. There is one wrong here that belongs to me. The room turned. He did not look at anyone except Susanna. "I promised to protect your privacy, then gave away your name because I believed my praise could defend you. A duke's praise is not honor when it takes away the praised person's choice. I was wrong." No one moved. He did not ask forgiveness before witnesses. He did not turn repentance into performance. "When this matter is settled," he said, "may I continue to call upon you." Susanna studied the man who had once spoken over her and had now stood silent while she proved herself. "Yes," she said, "because you have learned that standing beside me does not mean placing me before a room before I am ready." Hugh bowed. "I have learned it. I intend to keep learning." Susanna opened her portfolio again and lifted the cedar case. She placed it on the table between the failed western pin and the original corrective plan. When she opened the lid, the white glove lay as it had for more than a year, marked with faint red chalk and walnut dust. She removed it carefully and set it beside the broken fastening. Once, the glove had been the only proof that the unknown woman had stood beneath the gallery and understood its warning. Now the plan, the book, the studies, the pins, and the testimony all carried her name more strongly than the lost object ever could. The glove no longer had to speak for her alone. When the examination ended, the steward returned it to the cedar case before the Countess and placed the closed case in Susanna's hands. She locked it inside her portfolio with the original papers. Then she turned to Hugh. Her bare left hand rested at her side for a moment. At last she offered it. He did not seize it. He waited until her fingers touched his palm. Only then did he close his hand around hers. By March, the truth had moved beyond Davenant House, though not with the speed society preferred. The Countess's solicitors did not produce an instant ruin, and Sir Jasper Norwood did not vanish beneath a single public condemnation. Instead, consequences arrived in letters, withdrawn commissions, unpaid retainers, and demands for accounts he could no longer dismiss. The Davenant claim concerned defective work, misrepresentation, and recovery of losses. Other estate owners began reviewing projects that bore Jasper's signature. 2 suspended payment. A third requested every surviving drawing connected with his contract. Jasper attempted to blame the intermediary builder, but the builder's written account, the payment instructions, Mr. Avery's daybook, and the 2 crescent-stamped pins made denial expensive. By early summer, he agreed to a negotiated settlement rather than face prolonged proceedings. He sold part of the Norwood property to repay Davenant repair costs and return money taken for designs Susanna had produced. The settlement did not send him to prison or make him theatrically destitute. It did something more exact. It removed the reputation upon which he had built authority. Men who had once accepted his confidence as competence no longer trusted his name without examining the work beneath it. Lady Norwood withdrew from the London season. She wrote Susanna 1 letter in which debt appeared 7 times and regret not once. Susanna answered only through the solicitors. Selina's part emerged more slowly. In May, the publisher of the caricature surrendered the surviving drafts to avoid being drawn into the dispute. The notes in the margin included Selina's hand, Susanna's initials, and the suggestion that the rescue had been arranged to attract the Duke. Countess Davenant closed her doors to Selina, and several houses followed. Susanna took no pleasure in the exclusion. She only insisted that the publisher print a correction naming the allegation as unsubstantiated and false. The correction received less attention than the caricature had. She had expected that. Public cruelty traveled lightly. Public repair required weight. Through the settlement, Susanna received payment for the estate designs Jasper had used, and recognition of her beneficial ownership in her father's papers, the measuring book, the 1846 corrective plan, and her later studies. The original gallery pins and the altered tracing remained with the Countess's solicitor as part of the Davenant record. Susanna's own papers returned to her locked portfolio. The white glove remained in its seeded case beside them. Hugh began calling again in March. He came properly, consistently, and without treating improved conduct as a performance-deserving reward. He asked before showing any of Susanna's work to another person. When an estate agent referred to her as the Duke's discovery, Hugh answered, Miss Norwood was not lost to herself. When she corrected him before his steward, he amended the instruction without making generosity of it. Susanna noticed the ordinary nature of his effort. He was not admirable only when danger sharpened him. He was learning to be trustworthy when nothing dramatic required it. In April, he asked her to design a tenants' assembly hall at Kingscote Abbey. The contract named Susanna Norwood as designer and draftswoman. Mr. Bell was listed as consulting surveyor, responsible for reviewing calculations and formal specifications. Hugh placed the document before her and waited while she read every line. You have included authorship, she said. It belongs there, and payment independent of completion ceremonies. You told me applause is unreliable. Payment is at least honest enough to be counted. She looked up. That sounded almost practical. I have been keeping ambitious company. Work on the hall carried them through spring and summer. Their disagreements became as important as their agreements. Hugh wanted a decorative tower above the entrance. Susanna said it added cost, trapped damp against the roof line, and served no one inside the building. It gives the whole distinction, he argued. It gives rain another place to enter. You object to beauty. I object to beauty that requires tenants to pay for repair. He abandoned the tower after Mr. Bell confirmed her calculations. Susanna expected some graceful declaration about valuing her judgment. Hugh only crossed the tower from the plan and asked what roof pitch she preferred. The restraint pleased her more than surrender, dressed as romance. They argued over window width, ventilation, kitchen access, and whether the western doors should open inward during crowded gatherings. Susanna won the doors. Hugh won a row of higher windows after proving the lower wall needed protection from carts. Neither kept score aloud. By August, the hall stood roofed and sound. One evening, they remained in the drafting room at Kingscote after Mr. Bell and the clerk had gone. The last light lay across the completed elevation. Hugh stood on the opposite side of the table, where he had learned to wait. I spent a year searching for the woman who left a glove, he said. That was not why I fell in love with you. Susanna's hand stilled above the plan. Hugh continued. I love you because people tried to erase your work, and you answered by making the truth more exact. I love you because you protect those who may never know your name. I love you because you do not confuse rank with judgment, especially when the rank is mine. He came no closer. Will you marry me? Susanna looked at the crossed-out tower, the widened doors, and the signature line that still bore only her working initials. Will you continue to welcome inconvenient judgment after marriage? Hugh's mouth curved. Inconvenience is cheaper than collapse. She smiled then, fully and without caution. Yes. Before the wedding, solicitors prepared a marriage settlement that neither relied upon affection nor assumed Hugh's honor would substitute for law. Trustees were appointed. Susanna's papers, existing fees, Future professional earnings and design rights were vested for her separate use. Hugh voluntarily surrendered any claim to control them. "You know I would never take them," he said, when she reviewed the final document. "I know," Susanna answered. "That is why you will not object to making it impossible." "I don't object." Good. They married in September 1848 with no extravagant spectacle. Susanna became Duchess of Casterleigh only after the vows were complete. She kept working under the name written into her contracts. In October, the Kingscote Assembly Hall opened. The dedication plaque named Susanna Wetherby, Duchess of Casterleigh, as designer and Mr. Elias Bell as consulting surveyor. It also listed the master carpenter, mason, and foreman. No one stood upon a gallery to applaud her. The hall itself offered the greater testimony. Its doors opened wide. Its air moved cleanly. Every fastening could be inspected without tearing away the finished wood. After the guests departed, Susanna returned alone to the drafting room. That morning, she had removed the cedar case from her portfolio and placed it in the cabinet beside the final plan, intending to sign after the ceremony. Hugh entered a few minutes later, opened the cabinet, and brought the case to the table. He did not open it for her. Susanna lifted the lid herself. The white glove lay inside, the faint red chalk still visible along the inner forefinger. She placed it across the blank signature line. For a moment, the glove covered the place where her name should go, as silence, family, and borrowed authority had once covered the hand that made the work. Hugh stood beside her. He did not move the glove. Susanna lifted it away. She dipped her pen and wrote her full name beneath the completed plan. Susanna Wetherby, Duchess of Casterleigh, designer. Hugh waited until the ink had dried before offering his hand. Susanna returned the glove and the signed plan to her portfolio, locked it, and then placed her bare hand in his. Behind them, the final sheet remained open upon the table, and where her hand had once been hidden, her name could now be read.